us. We're gonna go ahead and get started and call the meeting to order. We don't have people yet to do the minutes or the agenda, so excuse my paint, sorry. Wichita Fire Department, would you like to give your update?
Good evening. My name is Lieutenant Gonzalez. I'm assigned to Fire Station 7 at 21st and Coolidge. I've done quite a few of these here. I used to be at Station 3 just up the street, so this is not new to me. During the month of December, we had about 67 calls for fire calls, about 225 medicals, and there's a couple hundred various calls, miscellaneous calls, requests for service, things like that. The thing I like to iterate with the weather that it is the way it is now. We had a lot of accidents that Friday. We had the ice storm, especially your elevated surfaces, 235, 135. We had probably 15 of them at the same time on the board. If you can avoid those, do so. If you have to get out, go slow. Because if you don't get there, you can't do what you want to do. And that's where we look at it and kind of slow it down on those, because if we can't get there, we can't make a difference. So we slow it down as well. So our response times do increase during inclement weather. But we do try our best to get there and help people as much as we can. Right now, I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions that I could answer. If there's anything, yes, sir.
Hey, if you would, I found that pretty informative. Tell everybody briefly about the fire hydrant thing with breezes.
Well, I was discussing it with Bill before the meeting. If you see a fire hydrant has a yellow cap on it, that means it's a non-draining hydrant. In cold weather climates like Kansas, we have dry hydrants. So water's way down in the ground. We turn a valve, it comes up to the outlets, and then it goes out. In your climates like California, Florida, they're wet barrel hydrants. So they're wet all the time, all the way at the very top. Well, sometimes those valves get stuck or get debris inside them, and it doesn't allow that hydrant, once it's shut off, to drain. So what we do is we put a yellow cap on there, and then once the weather starts to get colder, we'll go back, undo them, drain them manually with the pump, and then put the cap back on. Now that doesn't mean that a contractor, a city worker is going to come back through and use that hydrant and not drain it, because I've had that happen before, where they're frozen, and they will freeze it with 1 degree temperatures we're expecting on Sunday. If there's a wet hydrant right now that has water in it, it will freeze, I guarantee you. So luckily we're pretty blessed here in the city. We have a lot of hydrants. There's some places that aren't as well saturated with hydrants as others, but up on the north end, we're pretty lucky up here on this side. So, but that's what those are. So, anyone else?
I know as it gets colder, you guys see a lot more warming fires and
A lot of our homeless are starting fires under the bridges. I've made quite a few here on 29th Street, Johnny Mack Bridge down south. We've had numerous fires down there. I understand their plight, but the problem is, if you remember when they replaced the Hamilton Street Bridge, they had a lot of fires under there, and it spalled the concrete, and it actually ruined the bridge, caused millions of dollars in damage that they didn't necessarily need. So we have the fire out. And now I feel bad for them. It's cold, but I mean, I'm sorry. You know, that's just the way it is. So, yeah. All right.
any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. Right, looks like the police department is joining us virtually. Officer Johnson and Officer Soto, hello.
Hello. I don't know if I can show up there. I guess I'll start. I'm Officer Brent Johnson. I'm from West Community Policing. I'm over 11 beat and 12 beat, which is just west of the river from Kellogg to 21st Street and a West Street east to the river. So for me, for West Side, we actually were quite busy starting this year. We started with December the 14th. We had a shooting at Sims Park. One individual was shot and killed, and another was shot and hospitalized and looks to be recovering. The suspect in that case was taken into custody and has been charged. On December the 29th, we had a vehicular homicide near 2nd and Charles. That is going to be substance abuse related and drugs and alcohol related. And I believe that suspect is also being charged with that case, but the passenger in that case was killed. On January the 1st, we had a drive-by shooting at the 2600 block of North Paradise, which is near 21st and Zoo Boulevard, kind of there near Zoo. And in that particular case, it was a case of a large party that had gotten out of control. The people were coming and going. There was a fight that happened earlier in the night, and then that individual left and then came back and shot at the residence. That suspect is also in custody in that particular case. So that's all I really have for you guys. Does anybody have any questions for West Community Policing?
Thanks for all the great news. Just kidding. Do you have any tips or anything to remind anybody for the cold weather or any trends that you're seeing that we should know about?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to the cold weather, obviously we have all the ice and snow. It sounds like we're going to get more. Just to remind everybody, if you guys are having issues with ice and snow, please don't try and drive through things that look like they're going to be too high for your vehicle. Try and find a different route. Avoid those ice and snow where you can, because getting those vehicles stuck is not going to be helpful for you. Also, you know, when it comes to those accidents, just try and be as safe as possible. Slow is the main key when it comes to those ice and snow locations, whatever your vehicle can handle. And that's what I would recommend when it comes to those ice and snow.
Any questions for Officer Johnson? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm Officer Soto. I am the North Patrol Community Police Officer for beats 48 to 49. Really, the thing that I've been working on was there were several burglaries over in the North Riverside area, and by several, I'm thinking 10 to 14. We were able to put together a special assignment with our investigations, burglary detectives, and our property crimes response team. In follow-up, we identified a suspect, and basically he was caught in the act and arrested. I spoke with the detective in charge of those cases, and he will be charged for 7 new cases. So, does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sierra Kelly. I'm the branch manager here at the Evergreen branch. And I have a few exciting things that the library is doing to start the year off. So that we do every year is we have what's called the ICT Reading Challenge. So this is a year-long challenge. There's 12 different prompts, one for each month. You can complete it as early as you want, or you can keep reading the whole year. But we put the new prompts out at the beginning of every year. So we just put out the 2025 reading prompts. We have these new bookmarks that have the prompts on the back. I left a few over on the table, and then we also have them up at the circulation desk. So some of the prompts this year, like the first one is a book with a flower or plant on the cover. We partnered with Grow downtown to do some like gardening and plant type stuff, and that's where we announced the reading prompts from. So there's a couple things on there like that. I got started at the beginning of this year with a book featuring group dynamics. So that's number 8. You don't have to do them in order. You can do them in any order. I read a book called Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson, which is a dark comedy mystery about a dysfunctional family, so highly recommend. But if you're looking for a reading challenge to participate in this year, Read ICT is a great one. It's local to the city of Wichita. We partner every year with Suzanne Perez, KMUW, and the Wichita Eagle to come up with the prompts. And then we do also have prizes. So we use the Beanstack app to track people's reading. So you can download the app on your phone, enroll in the ICT Reads Challenge, and then you can track your reading. And if you do that, you're eligible for monthly drawings for book-related prizes. So I myself don't even know what all the prizes are this year, but if you're looking for a reading challenge, that's a great one to get involved with. I have some construction updates. So our Alfred branch, closed temporarily, January 2nd and 3rd, because they are undergoing construction. So for those of you keeping score, we now have 4 branches that are being remodeled right now. So the Alfred branches are, South branch, it's located at Meridian and 33rd Street. Alfred is not going to be closed during their renovation. So basically what's happening is, patrons can still come inside and they can still use the drive up services on the outside. They can come inside and they have a meeting room set up with a small browsing collection, computers. They're going to have the printer, the copier. They're still going to be doing passports, but just out of this small space while the construction is going on inside the building. So they are actually going to keep the branch open. So of the 4 branches that are currently under construction, all 4 of them are going to reopen this year. So it's going to be a banner year for Wichita Public Library. The Westling branch, which has been under construction for about 2 years, is finally going to open, fingers crossed for February. The Angelo branch, which I am also the branch manager over there, so I'm very excited about that one. Angelo branch is supposed to open at the beginning of March. The Rockwell branch is going to be, when Angelo closes, Rockwell will close. If anybody's been over to Rockwell, you know they've been doing a lot of construction work on the outside of the building. They're going to start work on the inside of the building in March, and Rockwell staff is going to come over to Angelo. We're going to have expanded hours at Angelo so we can still serve that district while Rockwell is closed. Rockwell is supposed to open back up at the end of August. And then Alfred will be the last one in the fall. So we've got a lot of beautiful new branches opening up this year that you should go tour and visit and see what they look like. There's going to be a lot of really cool local art in them, so there's going to be a lot to see. Another exciting thing that we're starting up this year, and it just started at the beginning of this month, is if any of you have visited the downtown library, you know that we have that cafe space set up, but we haven't had any cafe service in there for a while. So we are partnering with a local nonprofit called Legacy Works to have coffee service on Saturdays. So Legacy Works is a program that employs Wichita teens and teaches them professional development skills, financial resources skills. They have different skills that they can learn. So they have a coffee works, they have a plant works, different kinds of things. They have pottery works. But their coffee works program, they teach teens about the coffee industry. They teach them how to roast, how to make drinks, they give them customer service training. So they are going to be operating the cafe on Saturdays, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., which is when they're open. So definitely stop by and say hi to them. You can purchase drinks, and they'll also have a pay it forward program, so you can pay for drinks for other folks who might not be able to afford it as well. And when are they supposed to start? They started. I think their first Saturday was this last Saturday, I think. So it just started at the beginning of the year. But if you go next Saturday, they should be open. Yeah.
If I could make a suggestion, it seems like a simple one. If you could convey that back to them as they're teaching these teens, teach them how to make change.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a lot of
How
fun.
to count it back, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How to figure it, count it back. It's kind of lost in Curtsy Friday.
I can communicate that. They do have, so Legacy Works has a building, and we went there the other day. I wish I could remember exactly where it is, but they run their own sort of coffee house. And so the teens make the coffee, and they come up with the drinks and name the drinks, and they get trained on all of that kind of thing. We went down there the other day, so this will kind of be an extension of that. But I think they do teach them the money handling and the county back change, but I'll definitely relay that.
Their building is South Wichita, just east of the canal. They have a great CSA as well, for those of you who like your summer vegetable.
And then we have some upcoming programs, a few at Evergreen and a few at the downtown library. So our Cuentos Bilingües, bilingual story time, took a break during the holidays, but it's back up again. So Thursday mornings at 10:30, we have bilingual story time for kiddos. On Friday, January 17th and Saturday, January 18th, the Advanced Learning Library is going to host screenings of a documentary called Bring Them Home, which is narrated by Academy Award nominated actor Lily Gladstone. It's about a group of Blackfoot people and their mission to establish the first wild buffalo herd on their ancestral land since the species near extinction. So they got the rights to show that at the library. They're going to have screenings later in January. Tuesday, January 21st, we are gonna have family pajama story time. So that's gonna be a nighttime story time at 6:30. Attendees are invited to wear their pajamas, bring their favorite stuffed animal. We're gonna do bedtime stories and songs. So that's a great option for working parents who want to bring their kids to an evening story time. And then 2 events on Saturday, January 25th, both kids events. One's at Evergreen, so in the afternoon, we're gonna have Make and Take Crafts program, making biodegradable bird feeders. And then at the downtown library, they're having a Lunar New Year celebration. They're gonna have the Miss Wichita Asian Festival and the East High Lions Dance Club are gonna be there. So that should be a really cool event as well. Those are both on January 25th. And then finally, my last update is just to let you all know that Wichita Public Library branches are gonna be closed on Monday, January 20th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Any questions for me about the library?
Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, of course.
We are at public agenda portion of this meeting. There were no scheduled items, so we can go ahead and move on to number 6. Is there anybody who is here to speak on an agenda item that is not part of the agenda? Looks like it. We don't have anybody on Zoom either, so I will turn this over to you, Councilmember Ballard. And I think we do have quorum now, so we can go ahead and go back to the approval of the agenda and the minutes.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, January 13th, 2025? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Who was the second on that? I'm sorry. Mark, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the December 9th, 2024 meeting?
So move.
Second.
A motion by Bill and second by Josh. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, so let's move on to new business, CUP 2024-0046. Hello, Christina.
Hello, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for
Hi.
being here.
Of course. I'm Christina Reith. I'm one of the planning staff, at the planning department. I'm presenting this on behalf of Bill Ziegenberg, who prepared the report. And I hope you guys took a good look at it because it is a very complex report because it involves a lot of different moving parts here. So I will try to answer any questions to the best of my ability. So the case number is CUP 2446. And I think you guys are all familiar with the CUP. It's a commercial property that's greater than 6 acres in size. And so any changes that happen to the community unit plan, they have to go through either an adjustment or in this case, an amendment because the case is large enough. So they're requesting an amendment. The name of the number of the CUP is number 86, and it's to permit an off-site billboard sign with a maximum height increase from 30 feet to 35 feet. So this is north of the I-235 highway and on the west side of Seneca. It's zoned general commercial, and it currently has 2 athletic fields, football and baseball. So you guys can see in the CUP document, which is on page 9, it's only parcel A at this point. There's 1 parcel, there used to be 2, but one of them was removed and added to a different CUP. So let's talk about what is in the CUP. So at least the provisions for signage. So any signs or monuments designating the name of development, those are allowed. Flagpoles are allowed. 150 square foot 2-sided 20-foot LED sign is allowed. And then these are what is offered. So up to 3 scoreboards designated Word of Life Ministries. 2-sided off-site advertising on the scoreboards themselves, some 2-sided signage on the bleachers, and then, advertising with an inside fence with perimeter fencing. All that to say is, as of right now, a CUP, or sorry, an off-site billboard sign is not allowed. So billboards, you obviously know what they look like. They can be illuminated. They don't necessarily have to be. An off-site means that they are advertising something that is not part of that establishment, right? Okay. So they do permit off-site advertising atop the scoreboards, but again, not a billboard sign. So the intended audience of this is the spectators of the sporting events, not necessarily the people driving along I-235. That being said, if approved, they could be visible from the highway. But the purpose of this billboard sign, the intention is to provide advertisements and messages towards both directions of travel along the highway. So now let's talk about the Wichita Sign Code, which is, yes.
You should, and maybe I wasn't tracking you enough, but you said the intended audience are the spectators that would be
Correct.
attending the events here. But, and then the second part, you said it sounded like the intended audience,
Yeah,
you said the
that's something-
purpose of it was to be seen by the people on the highway.
So I will defer to the applicant for clarification because they are present here tonight. It is my understanding that it's supposed to be the spectators, but there's also maybe a second, nope, there's no secondary intention. So I guess it's by, just by default, it's gonna be visible
Okay,
from the
okay,
highway.
thank you.
Yeah, okay, so we don't get the sign code very often. We usually refer to the zoning code. This is what is allowed in the zoning, in the baseline zoning if it was not within a CUP. Okay, off-site billboard signs are allowed if it meets the linear street frontage. So, the street has to be X amount of feet long for you to even have an off-site billboard sign. There has to be spacing requirements, so you can't have two that are too close to each other. There's a limit on how many signs on the same street facing the same direction of travel. And then there's also distance requirements from residential properties or residentially zoned properties. And then it can't be within the setback, which is the minimum distance between the property line and where you can build. So hopefully you guys were, it took me a while to process, so hopefully you guys are able to follow here. So the proposed billboard, it would be 14 feet by 48 feet, which again is allowed in the baseline zoning. They didn't indicate the exact placement of the sign, but if this is approved, this will have to go through the sign permit and they're gonna make sure that it meets the spacing requirements, the street frontage requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And then, just so you guys know, there is some residential property nearby, but it's more than 300 feet away. The Arkansas River is nearby, but it's more than 660 feet away. There are no other off-site or billboard signs along 235, at least in the immediate vicinity. However, the property to the east, they are allowed to have one billboard. So it is staff's opinion that we don't anticipate the placement of an off-site billboard here if it meets all the requirements to have significant detrimental effects in the area. And then going back to the sign code, they use, in the general commercial district zoning, they allow a maximum height of 30 feet. But we can extend that by administrative adjustment up to 35 feet. But, because we're having this public hearing here, they're basically asking for, what could be an administrative adjustment, but they're just adding it to this amendment, right? So, the surrounding context, we've got a planned unit development used as an RV campground. And that's the one that allows the one billboard, but there's no billboard on site. To the west, we have general commercial district zoning and it's undeveloped. But that CUP to the west, it prohibits off-site billboard sign. So if they wanted to come in and do an off-site billboard sign, they would have to come through the same exact process that we're doing right now, knowing that these folks are requesting a billboard, right? And then to the north, it's within the CUP, but it's used for off-duty school buses. And then to the south, this is across 235. That's where we have the residential zoning of two-family, multifamily residential zoning. We have duplexes and apartments there. So this CUP was created in 1978. In 2013, there was an amendment approved to allow that vehicle storage yard that I mentioned earlier for the storage of school buses. And then in 2020, that's when we see the removal of parcel B, because there's A and B, so the removal of parcel B to go to another CUP. So the proposed CUP amendment is in conformance with the community investments plan. Now, this is a large area, and so the future growth concept map, it indicates the site is appropriate for new residential, commercial, parks and open space. So we have a couple different categories here. So when we're looking at, commercial, this is where we're seeing the future development of commercial land uses. So within the community investments plan, they have locational guidelines. And this is for, where things should be placed in relation to the surrounding context. And so one of the guidelines is that low density residential uses should be buffered from commercial and industrial areas by open space, water bodies, changes in topography or major barriers. And so when we're talking about where the residential development is in relation to the billboard signs, the proposed sign is buffered from the residential uses by the I-235 highway. And then for land use compatibility, one of the guidelines is that industrial and major commercial land uses that generate pollution, odor, light, safety hazard, and high levels of traffic should be located away from residential areas. So, from light pollution, because it's still really not the distance requirements of the sign code, that's why they're in place here, for some residential, as well as other barriers such as for. So staff is recommending that the amendments be approved. Conditions listed in your staff report. One is that the billboard shall be along West 40th Street North. This recommendation is based on the golden rule that we apply to all of our zoning cases. In your report, it does say that staff has not received any public comment regarding this case. I can say that last week, this was last Monday, I did receive, I think it was 3 phone calls in opposition to the requested billboard on site. I did forward that message to the commissioners. This went to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission last Thursday, and it was approved as a consent item. So we did not hear from the folks who did call in. So with that, let's go to the site photos.
I'll just say really quick, I did get a couple phone calls about it today, and then
Okay.
in the last 2 hours, I've gotten 3 emails of opposition.
Okay, thank you.
In
Yep.
addition, I posted it on our Sherwood Glen neighborhood site, got opposition here as well.
Yeah, okay. Yep, so these are some of the context photos of where the proposed billboard is going to take place. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
I noticed that, my kitchen arithmetic is not always as good as it should be. But just rough numbers, it looks like the size of the billboard is going to be over 100 square feet larger than a 53-foot tractor trailer. If it's going to be 48 by 14, it comes up to about 652 square feet, which is 530 feet in comparison to a 10 by 53 tractor trailer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's what I'm drawing the conclusion.
Okay.
So I guess if I understand this correctly, the CUP will allow the sign regardless. The real question is whether it's going to be allowed to be elevated 5 additional feet off the ground.
No, the CUP does not allow for an off-site billboard sign.
Oh, really?
Correct. So they are asking for an off-site billboard sign, and in addition to that, they're asking for a maximum height of 35.
Has there been any kind of candle power or lumens study? One of my biggest concerns is what's going to happen depending on the angle of the direction on this thing, because in addition to the apartment and duplexes, as was earlier stated, there are single-family residences on Nottingham Quarter, Nottingham Circle up there.
Yeah. And
So
I'll have
I'm
to,
kind of curious about if there's been a light study, so we know how much actual pollution will hit the other side of the highway.
I'm not aware of any light study that the applicant has conducted or that staff has conducted. I just know that the minimum separation is 300 feet. I know that's not very far, but I don't see in the staff report how far, like the exact number of how far the residences are from the billboard.
Okay. Thank you. This is gonna be an LED billboard?
I'm not sure. I'll have to defer to the applicant. There is that option. Just because billboards allow, they don't necessarily, there's no distinction in the sign code between illuminated and non-illuminated, externally illuminated or internally illuminated, so. Yes,
Point of clarity on the planning staff recommended amended language on point 5E. That says two-sided off-site advertising signage on up to 3 scoreboards no larger than 48 inches high by 24 feet long. Is that 24 feet? Is it saying 2
I'm
feet
sorry,
high?
I'm trying to find that in the report. What page is that?
Oh, you're right. Page 8.
Page 8, okay.
So, what was the 4 feet by 24?
About 24 feet.
Is that's the stuff that's allowed on the project?
That's what's already allowed on.
Yes, so what is in red is what
They want.
the text will be, like, if this is approved, this is what staff is recommending that they add to the existing CUP document. What is in red? Yep.
They already have, so they already have, or they can already do up to 3 two-sided 100 square feet.
Yes, and I believe those are the ones that are along the scoreboards of the stadium.
Or to put it in Bill's measurements, 3 two-sided, 2 semi-tractor trailer.
No, they're not that big. They're not that
150
big. These are-
Oh, these are the old ones, right? Okay. I'm-
I have to put things in some kind of visual perspective to get a handle on.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Christina? Questions for the applicant or the agent? The agent's here.
I guess maybe the question is about the illumination, like, is it gonna be an analog billboard or an electric billboard? Acoustic or analog?
Okay, let's go back to the earlier part about what the CUP already says about signage. The comments, the stuff Christine was reading on has to do with signage on the scoreboards. The reason we're here is because this is a CUP. If there wasn't a CUP there, they would just have to go get a permit and put in a billboard. The billboard, the CUP from back in the 90s, whatever this was, did not reference a billboard, so we have to do an amendment to be able to put in a billboard. Otherwise, if there was no CUP, they could put in a billboard.
Right, but that's the
Come out of
problem,
this.
that's the issue, I mean, there's a CUP.
Right, that's the
Yeah.
problem, is there's a CUP.
But no, that's your problem.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
that's our problem, is there's a CUP.
Yeah. That's not the CUP's problem,
Right,
the CUP isn't the problem. Except for you,
except for us, yeah.
right?
It's preventing us from just getting a
Mhm.
permit and doing it, yes.
I guess our question is, so what? I mean, like, the CUP is there, so we can easily respect the CUP because it's something that's already been established. So like, what value to the community does this billboard have? Because you're asking them to change their environment that they've established limits on through the CUP. So why is this good for the people living next to it?
Billboards have a purpose. And this is an area that you don't have billboards, in a mile in either direction or something like that. So this is a opportunity for advertising for the advertising company, for anybody that wants to advertise. This is an opportunity for them in an area that's not obtrusive to residents that fall within that 300-foot distance.
Some of these residents think that it is obtrusive. And the CUP is there, created an area that doesn't have this advertising. So to these residents, that CUP is the benefit. So if you want, I mean, the question is, if you would like the CUP to change, your task is to sell the change to the residents. So how will they benefit from this new opportunity for you to be able to advertise?
Well, anything you do out there, how are they gonna benefit if they're not next door to it or whatever? I mean, how would they benefit if you put the advertising signs on the scoreboards, that type of stuff?
They might not have to see them. Which they prefer not to. At least the ones that have spoken. The ones that love advertising and drive to see every new billboard, they didn't send emails. But the ones that don't love it, they send emails, and so they said, well, we have a CUP, they don't want it to change. So the question is, how does the change benefit the people who are saying this is no benefit to us?
So basically putting a billboard any place, you're saying is,
Putting a
They're always gonna
billboard
be-
here where
well,
they've
any-
already
any
had a
place.
CUP that says you can't put a billboard here.
but any place, period, how is anybody gonna benefit from it?
I mean, I
That's
think
kinda what I'm-
Vermont answered that question by saying you can't put billboards anywhere.
Right,
And that's one way to do it. But here we're saying in this area, there's a CUP that says you can't put this type of billboard up. You can put other types of billboards, but you can't put this one. And the residents who have communicated back to us have said, yeah, that's correct. We like that. And so that your challenge is, what is the benefit that these people are gonna be like, oh, yeah, you're right, I do want a billboard there. Because they've already said through this historic zoning modification on this place, that this place in particular cannot have that.
but anytime you do a zone change or a CUP amendment or something like that, there are usually people that object.
Yeah, and we listen to those people.
Right. But if people object, then every time, well, somebody's complaining, we're not gonna do it, then things aren't gonna get done.
Okay,
So
but
that's.
I think that,
Is somebody across the highway gonna benefit from this billboard? Probably not, no.
okay, well, there you go. Then, yeah.
It is one of the 9 things we do advocate for. I guess the question here in reading back in here, to both of you is, do you plan to have an LED sign?
I'll address that later.
Okay,
Well, so we don't know now.
In short order, the answer is yes.
Okay.
you want to come up and answer questions
I
or?
was not wanting to take up any of your time.
That's okay.
Any other questions?
We're more than happy to talk to both of you too.
You can answer sign questions.
Good evening. I'm David Mulhagan. I'm with Lamar Outdoor Advertising, formerly Ashby Street Advertising, formerly Clear Channel Advertising, formerly Eller Advertising, and formerly Donnery Outdoor Advertising. You have to go back in history if you want to talk about this CUP. Okay? Part of that history is property rights. When this was first put in 78, there was property rights that were stricken from the property owner by the city. Now, the city said, if you want to see about developing something that's greater than 6 acres, then you have to put these restrictions on, or else you are not going to be able to get developed. That restricted the property owner's rights. One of those restrictions was you will not have billboards. Even though it's a commercial zoning, even though it's an industrial zoning, you can't have billboards. And why was that? That's because 2 people decided in the city that they wanted to see about doing away with billboards. That hasn't happened. They're long gone. So now it comes back in 2006 that, again, it comes up again. We're redoing the sign code and it comes back, well, you have this part over here that's in the building code. It really needs to come over into the sign code. And there's also property rights. This gentleman is spending money to develop this. He doesn't know what it's going to be developed for, but he's spending his money to do it because he thinks, well, I can make money off of this. He's in business. He's a very good businessman. And so he comes up and he goes, well, what can I use this for? What is the best use that I can use this for? I'm still trying to figure that out. So one of the things I know that can help me pay my taxes, pay for the road, you know, all these improvements. I got specials out the wazoo up here, as I can see about having a billboard there. Now, this back here used to be Duke Stein. How many remember Duke Stein? Okay? How many people on this development down south were complaining all the time about all the traffic that was going along that street? I heard about it because I played at Duke Stein. Okay, we had to sign petitions saying we want to play here at Duke Stein because there's so much traffic. Okay, well, now that traffic's gone away because you know what? That bridge is gone. So there's no traffic going through that local neighborhood, which is great, which is fine. Okay, so it takes less going through there. But it comes down to, this is a commercial development. And the next door neighbor is commercial. This up here is also commercial. There is a opportunity to put a billboard over here. Well, that gentleman, he put it in there because he wanted that opportunity. He hasn't signed a lease yet. I've been after him for decades. He still hasn't done it. That's his choice. Okay, that's his property right. I did talk with one of the developer, or not one of the planning people, and they said, well, the person that contacted them was that it was either this property here or this property here. He really wouldn't say, but that's over 1,300 feet away. 1,300. You were talking about illumination. Our regular billboards have less illumination when you get 75 feet or longer away than a street light. This doesn't show how many highway lights are over here. So as far as the analog goes, it's not going to add to the light pollution. Thank you. We have done studies before, yes. And those studies on our digital units, if you're standing, I want to get this right. If you're standing 200 feet directly in front of a digital, it drops to 0.3 foot candles. Again, the street light at 75 feet is anywhere from 2 to 10 foot candles. Okay, and so, yeah, we're planning on putting a V design, and so it's not going to be directly, I mean, it's the people that are going to be affected are going to be a lot further away than the 437 feet directly across from the sign. So they're going to be 600, 700, 800 feet away from the sign. Again, there's going to be a lot of light pollution already coming from 235. It got changed from a 4-lane to a 6-lane. So there's a lot more traffic out there. There's a lot more lights out there. So there's going to be a lot more light pollution from those other sources. Yes, we don't have any other ones, but you know, a mile, the one direction to the east, we have a 14 by 48. Everybody drives by it all the time. You might notice it because it is a digital. We have another one that's 2 miles, another mile to the west, 14 by 48, along K96. We have another one that's 2.5 miles to the south, another 14 by 48. Typically on a highway, it's going to be a 14 by 48 foot billboard sign. If it was on arterial or on the streets, you know, of Wichita, the code limits it to being a 12 by 24. And so that's kind of where we're coming at from, as on the 14 by 48, it's a highway sign. The speed limit is 65 out there. So, and it does have to follow all the building setbacks that are in here. And so we will be hiring somebody to draw out and give us a survey to make sure that we follow all the setbacks. And as you indicated earlier, JR's in the code department, he follows all the billboard signs, restrictions quite well and quite thoroughly. And so he will make sure that we follow the building setback, we have the illuminations. There was, one time, you were talking about the nits, that we got a complaint. City got a complaint about a billboard that was too bright. So JR met with me at 9:30 at night. He had his little machine out there and I had him, we were out there looking at it. And we're looking at the billboard and he's going, it's not really registering close to what it needs to be. I said, well, we turned it down to about 5% at night, all depending on the ambient light. So we're sitting there talking, and then all of a sudden I start getting a suntan on my side of my face. It was the on-site sign that was causing all the problems. And so we get a lot of blame sometimes for bad management of on-site signs. And we get kind of lumped in with our off-site signs, but each one of our signs, we have modules on them to measure the light, the ambient light that's around, and it adjusts accordingly. And typically at night, we run a rate around 5 to 6% of the capacity on an LED light. And so it is way down as far as the brightness goes. And so that kind of is where we're at on this. With the CUP, all CUPs typically have changed in their lifetime. Because none of us can foresee what the future use is going to be. When Duke's Diamond was put in, they thought, okay, we're far enough away from the city that we're gonna have these baseball diamonds out here for, a long time. Well, they did have it for a long time. But then development came, and so now it has to change with that development. And this is part of those changing of the development. Just the same way with the properties to the south. They weren't there at one time, so the zoning had to change in order for houses or multi-family homes to be put in. It's a checks and balances. That property owners' rights, people's rights, and what the city wants to see about doing and expanding upon can all kind of work together. And so then that's part of what our meetings here are about. Is how can we see about working together? How can we see about making sure you understand what it is that we're going after and what we want to see about getting accomplished? And hopefully it comes down to being a win-win situation for everybody. And if you have any other questions, I'll be more than happy to see if I can answer them.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
You said you're at Lamar, right? It's a pretty big company.
I've been with small companies, I've been through the big companies, so yes, they are.
Part of our consideration is the impact on the applicant versus the impact on the community. Can you tell me, or if you can, the difference in say, how much money generated from analog billboard is some folks suggesting or digital one?
I mean, basically it comes down to the difference. If we want to see about putting a digital in, why? Why do we, Lamar, want to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars to put a billboard, a digital in? And that's because of demand. Because with the way the city code is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we can have 8 flips per minute. That means 8 advertisers per minute versus 1. Okay, now granted, we typically don't charge as much for those 8 flips versus the 1, because the 1 you're by yourself. And the other one is 8 different flips, and so it's a little bit less. But then again, it lets more of the local businesses advertise on it. Or even car dealerships, we have developments that advertise, local ones that, and we've been approached, well, we want to see about advertising, we need to get people off the road and into wherever the businesses that we have. Not everybody can afford a Rock Road address. Not everybody can afford a Maze address. Okay, but most people can see about affording a billboard to see about letting the community know what they do, where they're at, and how to get a hold of them.
But I'm asking what's the, like, how much was generated for the applicant for one versus the other? Like if we say this board comes to the decision that we're like, you know what, we'd rather it be an analog. With that restriction, it goes to council, say it gets approved. What would how much money would be generated ballpark for an analog?
Why would you want to restrict somebody's, property rights on telling them, well, you can only put in a, shed that's 8 by 16 and you can't have it illuminated to work in it versus having a shed that's a little bit larger and you have lights in it.
That's the question that we're dealing with, as we're trying to
That's
balance.
literally what this board does every month is deal with that question, community rights versus individual property owner rights. And so that's why it's germane.
But why are you interested in the revenue stream?
Part of the consideration is the economic impact for the applicant versus the benefit or the harm caused to the community.
Wouldn't the owner have the same, wouldn't he get paid the same no matter what billboard?
He's gonna get paid, yes, he is gonna, our lease agreement, he's gonna get paid regardless of what we put out there.
That's
Whether it's gonna be digital or whether it's gonna be analog. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question.
Any
So no,
questions
he,
before we bring it back to the bench?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Any other questions before we bring it back to the? Thank you so much. Sure.
Has there been studies done for the adverse effects of the LED lights with drivers? Because I know my mom has made several comments, several older people have made whenever they're on the highway and the LED lights hit them, they have a really hard time seeing. Has there been any studies on adverse?
there's been a lot of studies done, and not only with the federal government, but, OAAA, and, as far as there's another organization that had done a lot of studies on it. And their indication was that it doesn't impede the driver's visibility other than, okay, if you get one vehicle, two vehicles, three vehicles, okay, in a row, the more you have, yes, it does affect a little bit. But as far as blinding somebody, no. Or as far as distraction, no.
Really?
And those two come from the Transportation Department of the federal government. They've run studies on it. They've been running studies since 2004. I think it was on the digital effects. So,
Any other questions from the public? Okay, bring it back to the bench. Thank you so much. Or more conversation or comments, questions?
I move that we not approve the motion as it's presented.
I'll second.
Motion, Zach second. All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm an aye. I'm an aye.
Yeah, so 4-3.
4-3. Very much. I think that's the only thing on our agenda for tonight. I have a couple updates. I have, our District 6 coffee is on the 25th here at Evergreen at 9 o'clock. Tomorrow, there is an event here from 6 to 8, a community forum on Know Your Rights. So I know Representative Martinez will be here, helping with that. And then anyone that, is eligible that needs help filing their taxes.
I'd just like some help paying them.
I mean, I like that idea too.
Oh, okay.
And then, this Thursday, there is a, network redesign public meeting, in regards to transit, so, otherwise. Oh, yes.
One update. Tomorrow from 6 to 8 at Strangers Rest Mission Baptist, there is a WPD community input session on the gunshot detection policy. I am honored to be on the Community Citizen Review Board, that is notified as part of this process. So I believe this is in regard to some of the shot detection system with, I remember right, clock that we purchased for.
Okay, and where's the location?
It is Strangers Rest Missionary Baptist Church at 2521 North Road. And that is tomorrow from 6 to 8.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else have anything to share? Okay. Happy New Year. Everyone stay safe. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I did.
All opposed? Okay.
I think it's some kind of record.